all kinds of aquarium snails you can get for all kinds of aquariums. Something that's very common are these nerote snails. Naturally a brackish water animal, so not full marine, not pure fresh water, river estuaries and that kind of thing. And then you got these kinds of snails, often called rabbit snails and similar things, a good sort of 6 centimetres long. The little dots on it are the multitude of eggs that nerote snails lay in your aquarium. But unlike most snails, they won't hatch. You get what you buy, you don't get oodles more captive bred snails in your aquarium. So because they require that salt in the water, they just can't reproduce in an ordinary freshwater tropical tank. Temperature-wise, they're fine in your tropical tank temperatures. This tank has no heating. There's even cardinal tetras in there, actually, just a couple. It's house temperature, and in the winter in the UK, this water's now about 18 degrees Celsius, so quite cool. They thrive each year, and they live for ages. So you're usually picking these up at sort of adult size, nerotes and rabbit snails and those kind of things. These ones, having bought them at adult size, they're about 3 years old, and they're still thriving. Now the rabbit snails here, they're not so bad when it comes to feeding, because they will eat all kinds of stuff, not just algae. They'll poke and sift their way through the substrate, and kind of basically they're scavenging detritivores. They'll eat prepared food and so on. The nerotes are algae eaters. They're the best algae eating snail I think you can actually get, in my opinion, for your aquarium. However, if they've eaten it all, like in my aquarium, it is now kept very, very free of algae. Obviously, a well-established community of plants also keeps the algae down. If there's not a lot of nice green algae for them to eat, it is a good idea to put things in like these sort of algae wafers and supplement foods, even, you know, a little bit of vegetable matter. Substitute their diet, basically. So where have I found them? Well, I've not seen nerotes in the wild. If I have, I haven't noticed them. But rabbit snails, I've seen these in feeder streams from little streams in Thailand, going straight into the sea, ranging from a few inches deep to, 3 feet deep. And these, so they're obviously they're brackish, because they're literally joining the sea, the ocean. And the sort of habitat I found these in, and they're ultra numerous on a sort of a muddy sandy or a muddy sort of substrate in the wild. The sort of place you'll find, and I've seen it with archerfish, green puffers, scats, and exactly the area where you'll see mud skippers. So that gives you the sort of place they seem to be numerous, proper brackish water. But as I say, those are my nerote snails, have thrived in pure fresh water at house temperature now, which, varies up and down through the year, for 3 years. The nerote has already cleared off and gone elsewhere. Value for money, 10 out of 10. When I bought these snails, I thought they'll probably last a few months at a time. Years later, they're still thriving. The downside is they're not going to breed in your tank, and the upside is they're not going to breed in your tank. You decide. But great additions. And the good thing about the rabbit snails is they literally do burrow through the substrate. So they do sort of aerate it or whatever a tiny bit, but great things. Incidentally, the sapphire shrimps are cherry shrimps, if you like. These have been breeding and thriving in here also for years. Also at house temperature. There's no heater in here. There's no filter in here. About once a month, I take out about 1/5 of the water and replace it directly from the tap without any additives at all. Roughly the same temperature. I take a bucket of water out and I fill a bucket up out of the tap and I chuck it back in. Random selection of fish, white cloud minnows, small guppies, endless fish, a couple of random cardinals. Literally, I count it every time if there's a good bit of food at night, 40 to 50 sapphire shrimps and the snails. You decide how you keep your aquarium. But this one has just ticked along thriving for years, and the fish and the inhabitants with it.